Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here, back again with another video, and this is going to be Your Questions Answered episode 26. If you're unfamiliar with it, Your Questions Answered is the Q&A series I do here on this channel, so if you want to see your questions answered in the video, leave it in the comment section, make sure it's Lego, Star Wars, or Lego Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. Very special thanks to Christopher Gervais for doing the intro of this video. Like I always say, if you guys want to see your intros in these videos, send it to me as an unlisted YouTube video. If it's appropriate, I will be more than happy to include it. And I really did love the intro that Christopher did for us. It really took me back to a project that I had been working on many years ago. And I can actually show you guys that right now. This was actually a hand-drawn cartoon that I tried to do. I remember when I was younger, I always wondered like if I could actually accomplish making a hand-drawn cartoon. And I literally took a sheet of paper and I drew each frame and then scanned all of them to my computer. After scanning almost, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100 pictures, I just got tired and I kind of gave up on it. But it was pretty cool to see it come together to some extent. So him doing something similar to that I thought was pretty cool, and it really did take me back. So once again, thank you so much, man. I can't even imagine how much time you put into that. Moving on to the first question of the video, it comes from Builds Fast. He says, great video. Question. What is your favorite minifigure from any line except Star Wars? Anytime I get these except Star Wars questions, I always have to think really hard because with the Star Wars questions, I always have an answer pretty much right there at the front of my brain. But when it's not Star Wars, I gotta dig pretty deep to find it. But what really came up to me was probably the Marty McFly figure. I know it's not the most extravagant minifigure, but Back to the Future is my favorite movie franchise outside of Star Wars. So the fact that we have a Marty McFly figure, I think, is pretty freaking cool. So that's definitely up there. Other than that, I actually really do like the Harley Quinn figure from the Apocalypseburg set that recently came out. And it's totally for scientific purposes, but that is a really nice minifigure. Next question is by CT Productions. He says, do you think LEGO would make a UCS Kessel Run Millennium Falcon? Also, what's your favorite LEGO Star Wars minifig from 2019? I'll start with the second part of the question first. My favorite minifigure is absolutely the Han Solo that came in the Betrayal at Cloud City set. That figure is just amazing. It is the most perfect version of Han that we have gotten thus far. And I mean, I just love it so much. I literally have it sitting right here, so I have easy access to it. But this guy is a boyo. Now, as for the first part of your question, whether or not LEGO would make a UCS Kessel Run Falcon, I really think it's going to depend on how Solo holds up to the test of time. Like, years from now, are we still going to be talking about Solo? Is the Kessel Run Falcon going to be something that we consider to be memorable? My inclination is that it's probably not going to be, which means that LEGO probably won't do something like that. It's just, I mean, it's only appeared in one film, and it doesn't even appear in the film for most of the film. And by the time this film is over, the Falcon looks nothing like the Kessel Run Falcon that we would be thinking of. So I feel like all those factors lead me to believe no. The other big thing about it is if they did a UCS Kessel Run Falcon, it would probably be more pieces than the normal Millennium Falcon. I know it has less maybe greebling, but the fact that the front has that escape pod section, I think would maybe add more pieces, or at least more big pieces. So the price would either have to be the same as the most recent Falcon or even more expensive. And I really just don't see them doing that for what is essentially a specialty Falcon. While it would be really cool, and I mean, I can maybe see us getting something between the UCS size and the playset size, so maybe a $200 or $300 range Kessel Run Falcon. I don't know about a full-fledged UCS Kessel Run Falcon, but it really just going to depend on how we perceive Solo many years from now. If it becomes a classic film that we look back upon very fondly, then I mean, yeah, sure, the interest is probably going to be there for it, but right now I would probably err on the side of no. Next question is by Woven Tenacity, and they say, what are your thoughts on the 2019 April leaks? I've been excited to talk about this, so let's talk about some leaks, boyos. I got them pulled up right here on my phone. So the first one is Duel on Starkiller Base, and I'm actually so hyped for this set. I've been really wanting LEGO to produce a version of Kylo and Rey that wasn't just the original one that we got from The Force Awakens. They've been using the same face for Rey literally since The Force Awakens. Kylo obviously has gotten some updates, but we still never got a version of them from that last duel. We've gotten some leaks actually of the Kylo figure, and his face has changed up, which is just excellent. That makes me a very happy boyo. So I'm hoping Rey gets the same treatment and they don't just use the same Rey figure that we've gotten so many times. So I'm actually very excited for that set. The next sets are the action battle sets. There's an Attack on Endor one, an Attack on the Hoth Generator, and there's a defensive echo base. So I'm not really sure what to make of these sets. The descriptions of them have been that they're basically play sets with some sort of feature where you have to shoot targets in the set. And like I have no use for that. Obviously some kids will, so I'm not gonna crap on it, but for me, like that part of this, that doesn't really interest me. What does interest me, however, are the minifigures. We actually today had a leak of the new Scout Trooper that's gonna be presumably in that indoor set, and man, that thing looks so awesome. Of course, I can't show the leaks here, but if you guys go to the usual places, you'll definitely find them. And I'll just say that is a beautiful figure, and I'm very excited, at least for the indoor set. For the other sets, I'm not sure what type of figure updates we will get, but if it's on par with what we got for that Scout Trooper, then I'm actually all in on these sets. Seems like 2019 is the year of the Trooper. Next up, we got 2 sets from Resistance, which I was surprised to see, but it is a pleasant surprise to be sure. The first one is Von Reich's TIE Fighter, which is essentially a red First Order TIE Interceptor, and it does look really cool, so I'm definitely going to be interested in getting this set. And the other one is the Black Ace TIE. This is one of the ships of the Ace pilots, and it's not even like one of the most prominent Ace pilots that we see. In fact, he's probably the one that we spend the least amount of time looking at, but I'm imagining that at some point his ship and his character will maybe play a bigger part in the show, which is why we're getting his ship as opposed to something like the Fireball or one of the more prominent ships that we see in the show. But all I'm really hoping is that through these 2 sets, we get a decent arrangement of Resistance figures. Of course, I think we have to get Kaz in one of these sets. I would love to get Tora, and maybe some of the other cast and crew. So we'll see how that goes. But all in all, I actually am looking very much so forward to those sets. Next up, we got 20th anniversary sets. So we got Anakin's Pod Racer, the Snowspeeder, Clone Scout Walker, and an Imperial dropship. So the last 2 are actually the ones that really intrigue me just because of the minifigures. Obviously, in an ideal world, we're going to get a 501st version of that Clone Scout Walker. I'm not going to hold out too much hope on that because it could very well not be that at all, but I mean, it's perfect. It's perfect timing, right? Like if they want to do it, they could definitely do it there, throw in some 501st troops. It's not ideal like a battle pack would be, but it could be a good start. The Imperial dropship is the one I am so excited for because I feel it's going to be a relatively cheap way for us to get more of those new dual molded Stormtrooper helmets. So if it's a way for us to get a bunch of those guys in one set, then I am all on board with that. For the other 2, the Snowspeeder and Anakin's Pod Racer, I'm sure they'll be decent sets. I wouldn't say I'm excited for them. The Snowspeeder, like I said in my overrated sets video, the Lego Snowspeeders I just really have no interest in. I'm a little intrigued in how they could possibly improve it. In fact, I've been told that like the new Rebel helmets don't actually fit in the old Snowspeeder, so they're probably gonna have to change it around somehow. I'm just hoping that that's actually gonna be a substantive change. And then for Anakin's Pod Racer, I like the last Anakin's Pod Racer. It was pretty good. I'm sure this one will be better, but the old one was good enough. So I can't imagine them improving it that much more, but I am very excited over the prospect of finally getting a Shmi Skywalker minifigure. Next question is from Batarang. He says, do you think there will ever be a Home One UCS set, and what minifigures would it include? So obviously we have gotten a Home One set before. It wasn't like the actual ship, but rather some parts of the inside of the ship. And unfortunately, I think that's the farthest Lego will ever go with that. The Home One it's an interesting one because like that's one of those ships where I feel it's iconic to us as big Star Wars fan, but a casual person kind of, looking at sets on the shelves, they wouldn't really be enticed to buy that. All the UCS sets we get are like very iconic ships, and I just wouldn't really put the Home One on level with any of those that we've gotten so far. So honestly, I would say probably not. As for what figures would come in it, I mean, obviously Akbar would have to come in it. We'd probably also get some more generic Mon Calamari figures to go right alongside him, but as for any like unique figures, I don't know. Maybe a 9 Num. I mean, it wouldn't make the most sense in the world, but it would at least be cool to finally get him as a minifigure, so who's to say? Next question is by Barbro Studios Customs. He says, what would you do if you could rewrite the sequels? Would you keep Rey and Finn? PS, great job, keep up the good work. I've answered a similar question to this. I think someone asked before what I change about the prequels. This is just positing like if I would, like what would I do if I was given the chance to completely rewrite them? So as for Rey and Finn, I'd absolutely keep them. I love both of those characters. I'm very invested in their story, and they're, I think, the best parts of the sequels, and Kylo Ren is obviously right up there with them. So I definitely do want to see those characters stick around. But as for like rewriting them, I said before that the biggest thing I would change about it is I would just make, I mean, if they had to keep Starkiller Base, like I like Starkiller Base as a location, it's totally cool, like it makes sense, like why would they not have a base on some planet somewhere? But I would just make it maybe not a super weapon, because we've seen that so many times before. Or if you do want to make it a super weapon, then I would have just rather them deactivated it or just destroyed the weapon, which would make for a really cool like environment, right? Like imagine Starkiller Base, that like this like snowy volcanic planet where there's cracks and crevices everywhere because there's this weapon that was there, but it got like blown up, but it didn't necessarily like blow up the entire planet. It just caused maybe severe damage to it. I don't know. I think there could have been a cool way for them to kind of work around that without giving us the aesthetic of the planet blowing up at the end of The Force Awakens. Now that The Last Jedi is out, the biggest thing I would change about that is the implied romance between Finn and Rose. I hate that. It should be Finn and Rey. Like, that's what was set up in the first movie. I would like to think that most of us liked that idea, and I would like for them to stick with that. So hopefully JJ steers us back in the right direction. We'll see. Next question is by Mac Bricks. He says, great video. Why do you hate episode 2 Obi-Wan? I've been waiting to get to this. I've literally been hoping that someone asked me this because I love to talk about episode 2 Obi-Wan. I feel like Obi-Wan generally is remembered as a great character, a wise character. And that's generally true, but episode 2 is just such a departure from everything we learned about him in the original trilogy. He just bickers with Anakin all the time, and I mean, if you watch episode 2, I think most of us will feel sorry for Anakin, the way he's constantly being talked down to. Now, Anakin doesn't make it much better by whining to Padme about it, but in the scenes that he has alone with Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan just seems like a bad instructor. Like, even, like, anytime Anakin tries to help out, he always has a smart remark to make and to try to undercut what he did, and it's just like, dude, like, come on. He's a Padawan. He's not a fully formed Jedi. Your expectation shouldn't be too high of him. He obviously has much to learn, but I mean, like, there's like, why are you acting like such a jerk to this guy? And I mean, from a story perspective, it kind of makes sense because Obi-Wan didn't really want to train him in the first place. If you think about the first thing Obi-Wan ever says about Anakin, it's, why have we picked up yet another pathetic life form? But if you go back to the original trilogy, Obi-Wan looks back on their relationship with such fondness, which, I mean, if you want to give George the benefit of the doubt, I guess you could say, after all that time, Obi-Wan probably wants to remember Anakin's relationship with him as a more positive one, just to kind of reconcile with himself, like feeling better about everything that happened. But I just don't think it makes for a compelling story overall. Like, they should have been friends. They should have been close friends. They should have had a friendship develop on screen, excluding the Clone Wars, because the Clone Wars happened after the fact. They should have had a relationship form on screen, and I think that would have really made Anakin's betrayal a lot more powerful than it could have been. I was having a discussion on my live stream the other day with people about the prequels, and I just feel like the biggest thing with Revenge of the Sith is, like, you basically got, like, the minimum possible level of emotion out of that film that you could have gotten based on the circumstances, but it should have all met a lot more. Anakin's betrayal should have felt a lot stronger. Like, it's easy to get caught up with the emotions in the moment, but when you look at the overall scale of their relationship, they pretty much have no relationship in episode 1. I would say maybe if they do have a relationship, it's not a good one because Obi-Wan doesn't want to see this kid around. In episode 2, their relationship is just totally fractured. Like, Obi-Wan talks down to him and Anakin talks about him behind his back. In episode 3, they start off kind of on that same beat, and then they become slightly friends, like on the last moment that they talk to each other before Anakin turns to the dark side. And that's it. That's the extent of their friendship. So, I don't know. It's just a missed opportunity, in my opinion. I would have preferred to see more of a relationship develop between the two main characters of those movies. So, yeah, episode 2, Obi-Wan is a jerk. And finally, the next question is by Natty Odd, and they say, what do you think about the Clone Wars? I've had plenty of people ask me about the Clone Wars on this series, but I wanted to add this question here because I actually just finished doing a rewatch of the Clone Wars. I guess technically I'm not. I'm like halfway through the lost episodes, but I've gotten through like the main story, right? And generally, I didn't remember the show being so depressing. Like, it's so lighthearted through the first few seasons, but like once you get to season 5 especially, it's just like constant depressing things happening. Like, Obi-Wan loses the team, which was absolutely brutal. Anakin loses Ahsoka to the Order, which is probably one of the most emotional things that I've ever had to witness on a Star Wars screen. And I mean, there was literally like a terrorist attack on the Jedi Temple. Like, holy crap. I can totally see why Disney may have wanted to cancel the series just because it was getting so dark. Like, look at some of the things that happened in it. But overall, I mean, I enjoyed it. There's so many cool Star Wars things to see in the show, and there's also a lot of goofy stuff too. I won't try to be too negative about it here, but overall, I did really enjoy the Clone Wars. It adds a lot to the prequels. Like, without the Clone Wars, the prequels are just god awful, but the Clone Wars does do a decent job in redeeming them in some ways. So yeah, I like the Clone Wars. I'll definitely be rewatching it again at some point. Thanks for asking. And that's going to finish up the video today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed me answering these questions. There's so many things I want you to guys put in the comment section. Of course, put your questions in the comment section. Check back next week to see if you make the cut. But also, let me know what you guys think about the April leaks, and what character do you hate the most in Star Wars? I would love to know that. So, like I always say, guys, if you like what I do, go ahead, support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing the subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.